If you've ever used one of these John Deere Model 49 snow throwers, you'll know that you cannot adjust the chute discharge angle without getting off the tractor, loosening it up, and manually adjusting it here. Well, the way that my driveway is set up, I'm really close to my neighbor's driveway, so I gotta be careful with where I'm throwing the snow so I'm not making more work for them. So I got this actuator from Push Industries that will allow me to adjust the chute discharge angle without getting off the tractor. I'll be able to just flick a switch and raise and lower it, whatever I need to do, right from sitting on the tractor, which will make my life so much easier. So let's dig in and see what it takes to get this installed. I just wanted to do a quick run over of what comes in this kit. It really comes with everything that you need. This is not a model specific kit, so there will be a little bit of customization in this just to make it fit what you're working with. As you can see, you get a ton of wire for the switch. You get all the zip ties you would need for routing, and these are really cool. They're little platforms that you can zip tie the wire to, and then they have this adhesive back so you can keep your wiring tidy. Otherwise, it just comes with everything you would need. The switch, some butt connectors, of course the actuator itself. Even comes with a step bit for some holes that you're gonna have to drill to mount this. And it comes with this really cool waterproof wire connection that's going to allow you to leave the actuator hooked up on the snowblower, but of course take the snowblower off the tractor when you need to. I believe that's what some of these butt connectors are for too. So far I'm really impressed with the quality of everything that they sent with this kit. Of course, you are going to need some of your own tools. You probably need a socket set or some wrenches. You're going to need a wire stripper and cutter, and I would imagine some electrical tape. I'll let you know what you need as I go along here. The first thing we're going to have to do is get those knobs off of the chute, so let's go over there and get that done. While getting set up to get this knob removed, I noticed that the kit only comes with hardware to remove one knob. I know that my short chute snowblower had only the knob on one side, so that makes sense. I don't even know if most of the long chutes have them on both sides like mine or not, but it's fine. I can just use the hardware for the knob and just put a nut on the other side. This does have nylon washers with it, which I do not have extra of right now, but I can swap those out. The nylon washers just help make it easier for the chute to move with the actuator. So I just won't tighten down the other side all the way right now, and I'll get some nylon washers later, but let's get these knobs off. When installing the hardware to replace that knob, it'll go black washer on the bolt and followed by a white washer, and then maybe a kind of a tricky part, we're going to want to get a white washer up in between the two parts of the chute. Alright, there appears to already be a washer up in between the two pieces of the chute here, so I think I'm going to get the other side off, and then I'll be able to swing this all the way up and we can get that piece out of there, because that's very worn, and I think we want to put a nice new washer in there. Yeah. See, there's the old piece there. It's pretty worn, so get this nice new washer up in there. So there we have the washer up inside there. Now we can put our bolt there, and then we'll go another black washer on the inside, followed by the lock nut. And now we can just tighten that down. That's a 13, also a 1/2 inch would work. And then you want to just leave it loose enough that that can still move. Now for the other side, we're just going to use the old hardware from the latch. So I still have that washer in between the two parts of the metal here. And so now I can put that bolt through, put the washers back on, and then I'll just use a nut that I happen to have in my old hardware bin. And then we can just get that just a little tighter. Make sure that that's still able to move. And of course that will become one of those temporary fixes that are permanent. The instructions say to mount this actuator on the left side of the chute here. Like if you're sitting on the tractor, it'll be the left side. They say that that will give you the cleanest installation because that puts this cord close to the chute and towards the tractor. So you'll be able to line this up and get it tucked in really nice and clean. Now to determine where your holes are, they give you this template. So we're just going to tape the template to the chutes here. On this template, I took a small screwdriver and poked where their X's were on the 12-inch line. And then they had a circle here, which is the 8-inch template, shows the spacing for when the actuator is fully retracted. So you're going to want to make sure that your chute is up all the way. Get this lined up, mark your holes, and then you can lower the chute with this still taped to the top. And then when the chute deflector is lowered down into its lowest position, the 8-inch holes should line up. And that's how you can verify that you have the correct spacing for your holes. So let me get this taped up on here. I'm going to put it right above the track here. Now that I got that taped where I want it, I can take a fine tipped Sharpie and then just make little marks where those X's were. Now we can untape this bottom portion. You see I got my mark right there. And then we're gonna just loosen up this top a little bit so we can swing. And then if we lower this down, well, all right, we can put that back on there. Line up our holes there. All right, if we reline up our hole there. All right, with our top hole lined up there, you can see now that that 8-inch hole lines up too, so we have that in the right spot. Now that we know we got the holes in the right spot, we can go ahead and punch those. These are really handy, spring-loaded punch. Definitely suggest one of these for this project. And now there is this unibit or step bit, however you like to say it. It wants to drill to the number 8 here. So you can just remember that that's the third step, or what I like to do is just tape off the next step so that make sure you don't go past it. It's probably not important, but it's just peace of mind for me to make sure that I stop at the right one. And I don't care what anybody else says, I really like Ryobi tools. Alright, now that we got our holes drilled, this kit comes with these long nuts that act as standoffs for the actuators, so we can go ahead and get those installed. You're going to want to make sure that these nuts are tight all the way before you install the actuator. So we'll just go ahead and get those tightened up all the way. And then once again, that's a 13mm socket, and then I'm using a 1/2-inch wrench, so either a 13 or a 12 will work for these. Now we can install the actuator itself. We'll just do the top one first. Get that lined up. Now these bolts should bottom out on the bolts that are coming through from the other side. You do not want these to tighten up on the actuator because that needs to be able to pivot freely. So there, that's tight up against the other bolt and that's still able to freely pivot. Now we can move this down. Get those holes lined up. There's a little less space for the bolt on the bottom here, so it might actually be easier to do the bottom one first and then line up the top. Okay, take 2 on the actuator install here. The bottom one is definitely harder to line up, so I would suggest doing that one first. Can't even get a socket on it. Now we can get this tightened down. So that bolt's bottomed out and that still has room to pivot. Now we should be able to line this top up a little easier. It's a little tricky to get everything lined up, but looks like we got it all set there. Looks like with this fully retracted that chute is in a nice spot. I'm not gonna be blowing the snow into the neighbor's yard. I would imagine that now that that's all installed, we're gonna get onto some wiring. So let me go check out the instructions and get back to you. I've been playing around with the wiring a little now, and I think I have this end of it set up the way that I would like. Obviously the tape will be temporary, but just to make sure that, see if I can get this in the shot here. All right, this might be a little loud, but I have it set up so I have full turn of the chute without the wire getting bound up. I have it zip tied here. I'll zip tie it tighter once everything's finalized. The only pivot points I need to worry about are down here where the snowblower goes up and down. Pivot's right there. And then if you can see right here, this cylinder has to slide through this mount right here. And of course, this will be cut off and go down in that way. But the cord here, cord here is away from all of that, and it doesn't look like it's going to bind up anywhere. So I think all that is going to work just fine. Where I had the wire taped down right here, I'm going to use one of these zip tie bases that came with the kit. That'll just stick on right there, and it'll give me something to zip tie the wire to. So I clean that area with brake cleaner, and then we can just go ahead and stick that right there. So now the wire will come up this way. I'll zip tie it there, and then I'm going to cut it just a few inches past that, and then put a connector in line and then now I'll go show you on the other side here where I'm going to run the wire. Here's the switch that comes with the kit. Usually this would just be mounted to your dash or maybe down on the tractor down here, but since this is actually not the tractor that I plan to be using for most of my snow blowing uses, this is more of a temporary mounting situation. So I'm actually going to be mounting the switch to this bracket right here, and that would allow me to use this snowblower on any of my tractors and still have this chute feature. So I'm gonna drill a hole right here and then stick this through, and then if I've got the switch up here, I can run the wiring down here. There's a little hole down here. The pedal might be blocking it, sorry. But there's a hole down here, and then the wire can come through here and travel along this engine mount. There's a couple holes in that also. So I'll be able to zip tie the wire down through here, and then it can go up front and have the other end of the connector where it will attach to the wire coming off of the snow thrower. And that should be simple enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this hole drilled, and that way I know how long I gotta make the wire for everything. I think I got you guys set up in a decent spot to see this, but if you can tell right here, I've got a little mark right there. So that's where I'm gonna drill my hole. I'm gonna try to use the unibit from the kit. The biggest hole here is the size that works for that switch. This unibit worked fine for the thin metal on the chute, but this metal is of course much thicker, so I'll try it out, but I do have some other bits just in case this isn't sharp enough to get through that metal. Do our center punch here. I'm gonna do it twice to make sure it's good. Gonna put a little oil on it, maybe to lubricate this so it doesn't burn up so quick. I don't think that unibit is quite quality enough to get through that thick of metal, so use a cobalt bit here. Now that we got that initial hole drilled, I think that I can go back to the step bit. So once you get the initial hole drilled, this step bit actually works really good. So got through that, let's put the switch in. It's a little rough actually, so I'm gonna take a file and clean up the hole a little bit. The switch that comes in this kit comes with this outside nut here, of course, and then it also has this jam nut for, you know, if you're just putting this into sheet metal or the plastic dash, you would want to get that jam nut tight up in there and then tighten that down. But since the metal that we're going through is so thick, we do not need that jam nut. So we'll go ahead and remove all of that. So we can go straight into there like that. Put the outside nut on there. And now we can tighten that down nice. And then we can put this cover for the switch on there. And that should be a perfect spot right next to the chute control, everything all in that one spot. I think that'll work great. I'm gonna get the wiring from the battery to the switch done first. So I'll just run the wiring through that hole there. I do have a kit of grommets that I was gonna use for this hole, but I guess I do not have one the right size. So for now, I'm just gonna run the wiring through the open hole. It'd be better to have a grommet on there, but this wiring isn't really going to be moving around too much, and it does have a nice shield on it already, so it should be fine. But I'm just going to get this just kind of pinched up here somewhere, so I know I got enough to get to that negative one there. That's the furthest. And then this will just run up. I'll just zip tie this to the bracket there and then get that up there. So I'll just leave myself a little extra. I think there's plenty of wiring with this kit, so I can give myself lots of extra. This tool is really sweet. I would definitely recommend getting one of these. I'll try to put a link for one of these in the description if you want it. I just went back to grab something off my table, and I remembered that it comes with these leads for the connections to this switch here. So I actually didn't need to make this wire this long, but that's all right. I will cut these a little shorter, and then I can attach it, you know, somewhere around there. So I'm going to pull this wire out, and then we can get these attached to the wire. And real quick before I go to splice everything together, I'm going to take a measurement quick. I'm going to be putting this one here. So I want to know how much of this outside shielding here I got to cut. So it looks like if I go maybe back to about there, just put a piece of tape there, and there I can cut that much off, and then these wires will be separated enough to get to their right terminals. I think I'm just going to get this battery side done first. So I just need to trim off the shielding here. Just score it with the razor blade. Hopefully I'm in shot here. Make sure you don't cut into the wires at all. All right, now that we got the wires out of the sheathing, I'm gonna trim the red wire back down as close as I can to that, and then I will put this inline fuse onto the red wire there. You want to get this fuse as close to the battery as possible so you don't end up cooking this wire if anything's shorted out or anything. So get that on there. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and just cut this red wire right here. And then we're going to just cut a little bit of this. And that should be plenty. We'll take our wire stripper and get this cleaned up. This kit comes with these butt connectors, and they're actually pretty nice ones. They're heat shrink connectors, so put the wire in each end, crimp it down, and then you take a heat gun and it'll shrink this down, so it actually has a pretty sealed connection in there. But I prefer to solder everything, so I'm gonna go that route. I have a kit of this marine grade heat shrink. It has a heat activated lining in there, so when you heat it up to shrink it, it actually has a adhesive seal to prevent any water of any sort getting in there. So that's the route I'm gonna take. I did perhaps cut this a little short to get because you have to have this on there first, so that actually might be too close to that solder end. So I'll use this for the battery terminal side, and I'll strip a little bit off this side, and then we can cut a little chunk of this off. And then hopefully that will be far enough away from the solder there. And then I've got this little helping hands tool here for helping solder. Mesh those up. And then give that a little twist. It should be nice and held together. Let this heat up a little bit. Pretty cold in this garage. I probably should have preheated this with my heat gun. All right, that's a good secure connection there. Put the heat shrink over that. Okay, now that the heat shrink's on there, we'll just take our heat gun and just get that heated up there. Now it might be, let's see if I can get this to focus on this. You might be able to see there's just a little bit of a coating in there to really seal up that connection. And now we'll use their provided terminal connector. Slide that. Might have to twist these together. Slide that over. Get it up in there. And then we can put it on the red crimp there. Give that a really good crimp. That's on there tight. Keep that heat shrink connector up. And that's a really nice connection there too. These are actually really quality connectors that they give you with this kit. I just went and gave that a quick test fit on the battery. It looks like I can take a little bit of this off. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that there. Get a little bit of that exposed. And then we can put our other terminal end on. And now we can just heat this one up. Perfect. I'm not really happy about how floppy the seams where this shielding ends here, so I'm gonna cut a little bit more of my marine heat shrink here, and I'm going to slip that all the way over till about here and then heat shrink that, so that makes that part a little bit stronger there. All right, I got that slipped over there. Sorry about the focus there. That just makes that spot where that ends a little bit more sturdy there, gives it a little more protection too. Now we can go and get our spade connectors onto this side. Okay, I got these ends of the wires all ready to go. I didn't really think you wanted to watch me splice wires for the next 20 minutes, so got that all set up. Now I just will probably do a time lapse here of me getting all these connections ready. Just to make sure that this connection is all secure, we'll put a big old heat shrink over it. And now we have a nice connection there. And that should be the battery side of the switch there. This kit comes with this great, really simple wiring diagram. Pretty much the only thing you need to know is what side to attach the positive and negative to there. It shows that fuse in line there close to the battery. I think it's just going to kind of depend which way you mount the switch, whether you use whichever terminal for up or down, I think. So that's probably just going to be a trial and error to figure out what terminal to put what side on there. So we'll figure that out when we get there. But now I think I can just connect the battery to that side of the switch. Of course, I'm not going to connect it directly to the battery yet. That will be the last step. We don't want to electrify the system before we're ready. But I got the wire already ran through the hole there. It'll come up to the battery here. We'll just leave those in there for now, but we can get this one that's closest to the battery is the negative. So that can go on there, and then positive on the other one. And that part of the switch is done. Now we just need to run the wire up to the snowblower itself, and that should be it for wiring. So a little story time here. I don't know if you could tell by the time elapsed, but I was having trouble trying to get my solder hot enough to solder these wires together. And it's a little cold in this garage. It's probably sitting about 45 degrees in here. So I thought maybe it was just the cold. Everything was cold. Trying to get everything to warm up was just too much for my soldering iron. So I brought everything inside, decided not to film it because I feel like you guys don't need to see me soldering wires over and over again. So I brought it inside and it was still not getting hot. It turns out one of the screws on my soldering iron was tight, but apparently just not tight enough. So I tightened that and it worked fine. So moral of the story, if something doesn't seem to be working right, it's probably because it's not working right. And I just had to figure out why, and it worked fine and I was able to do it. So anyways, all that to say, I got the other side of the switch wiring done. So this is the wiring to go to the actuator itself. I got it all nice and wrapped up. Should be all weather resistant and good to be put on. I'm just gonna feed this wiring up through where I want it to go for right now, just to get it cut to the length that I need it to, and then I'll pull it back out and crimp the connector onto here. I'll show you guys what I'm using for that, and then we'll reinstall it. It might seem like kind of a lot of extra work, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to crimp the connector onto this end off the tractor than on it, so I think it's worth going through this extra step here just to make the crimping a little bit easier. So we're going to run it along the mount here and then up to the front, and then I think I'll just continue pulling this out, and this is, oops, wrong wire. And then we know that this just has to come up, so I'll just kind of lightly stick these wires on here. Oh, well, that clipped all the way, so we'll just put that on there so we know that we have enough. And then we'll go up to the front and get the right size. So here's where the wire is ultimately going to come out of. So we just need to fish this. Oh, looks like I'm on the pulley there. We just need to fish this wire down. Wire's kind of curving the wrong way, so we're just gonna twist it down. It's a pretty small area that's got to fit in through there. And of course, once we get it finalized, we'll have to make sure that we have a way to keep it against the frame here, so it doesn't get into the pulleys up there. I'm gonna remove the grill just to make it easier to fish this wire through here. Just like that, and that should be enough. There, that should give us just a little bit of extra wire to work with there. Made that a little long, it shouldn't be an issue. I'd rather have it too long than too short. All right, we got the wire pulled out mostly so we can get into a easier spot to deal with out here. Okay, I got the wires all stripped and ready to go. This kit comes with this screw-on style connector. It's actually really nice. It's got a really nice weather seal. The problem is, if I use this, I'm going to have a couple extra splices here. And I don't think that's necessary because I have a weather pack kit. So with this, I'll be able to do the same thing, make a connection here, but I'm not going to have to splice into this at all. It's going to be just the one connection on both sides, easy, ready to go. So we're going to use this kit. So I got my 2-wire connector there. I don't think it really matters which side goes on where, so I'm going to use the male end on this one, and then I'll just need the pins for the male end. For this kit, you do need a crimping tool for these connections. So this is the same brand as the connectors themselves. So it's made for it. It's just a really nice ratcheting crimping tool. So putting these on is pretty straightforward. Just make sure that your wire is all nice and tidy there. You got to put these little insulators on first. You want the little nubbin end facing the end of the wire. And then you can put your pin on. Once you get the pin on there, I like to just bend in the wires around the insulator just a little bit. I guess it's more of a seal. That'll hold that seal there in place while you're crimping, and also the way it comes is a little bit too wide to fit into the crimper, so put that in place there. Give that a nice tight crimp. You gotta go all the way to get it to pop back open. We kind of missed on that one. That's all right. There we go. Yeah, so I got this one bent a little bit, but we can just take a needle nose and fix that. That was operator error, not the tool's fault. And then the same thing on this red one, so I'll just speed this up for you guys. All right, those didn't turn out super great. Hopefully we'll get the next ones better. I promise, I know how to use this. And I almost messed that part up too. Actually, the male pins go into the female connector. So make sure we get the right connector here, and then get those. All right, so then just push them in until you hear them click into place. And then once they're clicked into place, you just can clip that part down and you have a nice connection. I'm working on the chute side of the wiring now. I just wanted to show what an actual decent version of this crimp looks like. Since pretty good. I figured I didn't need to show this all on camera again, but these are the female pins, so they go into the male connector. Just like that. Right. So now I changed up a little bit of how I plan to do this. So this wiring is going to drop down here. Try to keep you guys in the frame here as much as possible. But so I think I'm actually just going to wire tie this wire to the hydraulic lines here, because they won't move too much, especially down at the ends here. I'll just do a loose tie on there so there's some flexibility. And then I won't even use the standoff that I put here. I got the tractor side of the wiring all set up. I'll show you that in a second here. So yeah, I'll just zip tie this right here, and then they can connect right on top of the snowblower bracket right there. And then that should be a nice safe place for them. And then this wire should be plenty long enough still. I did end up having to run to the store, so I picked up a grommet while I was out so that these wires will be a little bit better protected. So I got both of the wires running through there now. This one is the one that goes up to the actuator. That runs into here, it runs up through here, and then I got it coming through this ground right here. I got that wire tied there. Run down, wire tie to the engine mount there, and then up through that hole, and then of course down and out through here like I showed before. So now I'll just get this all wire tied to here and then get it connected to the switch up there, and then we will try it out. I got the wiring all finalized here. It's all tucked up out of the way. It shouldn't be getting in the way of any pulleys or anything that moves. You just want to make sure that the wiring is held away from anything that might be moving or getting hot. On the inside here, I put another one of those zip tie standoffs so I could get the wiring pulled out of the way because this here moves. I'll show you with the, that's the hydraulic movement lever there. So that's got to move. There are a few levers down here that have to move. So everything's tucked away up against the wall there. I definitely suggest, if you're working with zip ties at all, that you get one of these flush cut side cutters. They work super well. They won't leave that rough edge. So now if I have to get my hand down here to fix something, I'm not going to worry about cutting myself on the end of the zip tie there. So now that we got the wiring all finalized and hooked up to the battery, we can give this a try. Awesome. That is working great. Awesome. That is so cool. All right, that's going to be so helpful. I just wanted to show you my wire routing here and how it doesn't interfere with anything. I can turn the chute both ways without it binding. And then here I can lift and lower the snowblower, and the wiring won't get in the way at all. It's actually working really nicely. I just noticed that Push Industries has updated this actuator system. This isn't a sponsored video or anything. I've actually had this actuator for a long time. So this is an older model. They have a new and improved setup for 2025. It's got a boot that goes over the actuator arm here. It's got wiring updates with not as much connections needed. So it looks like they improved on some of the things that I wasn't quite happy with on this one, but most of the things that went wrong were user error like they usually are with me. So yeah, I really appreciate Push Industries for making this kit. Once again, not sponsored, but it's really nice to just buy a kit and have everything that you need, and it just works. So if you want to see a video on how I got this tractor all set up with the snowblower, you can check out this video here. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like. And if you want to see more content like this, I got a lot more coming up, so hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Man, it's cold.